the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results that you're not happy with, right? So why not try something, find somebody who's done what you want to do and do that same thing. I mean, and I think, something that typically will stand in the way of an advisor is their ego.
This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business.
Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike along with Luke Acree. And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're not already subscribed, and while you're there, drop us a review to let us know how we're doing. We will read it here on the show. Our guest today is Erin Botsford, known as the Advisor Authority. Erin is a 30-year veteran in the financial industry and was a Barron's top 100 advisor in all categories. After selling her practice in 2017, Erin now teaches others how to model her success through her Elite Advisor Success System. Erin, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's always fun to see you guys.
Yeah, it's always awesome to talk to you, Erin. We actually had Erin on the show a while back.
Second appearance.
And the people we invite back, it's because they literally are just a library of knowledge and wealth and resource. And it's like you feel like you barely get any time. And we're also going to be doing a special webinar. I guess it's about a week out, right? Maybe a little
January
bit more
11th, so a week and a half after this releases.
Yep. So we want to make sure, you guys come to that. You'll learn more about that on the show. But the whole webinar is going to be about becoming the unforgettable advisor in 2023. Like, how do you do that? How do you become unforgettable with the markets the way they are, with people obviously always in a panic, right? How do you become the advisor that's the unforgettable one, the one that's out front leading, not the one who's hiding and letting people make the decisions for themselves? I would love, Erin, if you could just give a quick, just summary of who you are, what got you into coaching, because I love your story. And then let's jump into that topic of the unforgettable advisor.
That's great. Yeah, who I am. So I started in the business a long time ago. I struggled really badly. And so I decided to go get some business coaching. And I had an epiphany one day, and that's all it took. And so it was the third year of my coaching program, my 12th session. My coach said, stand up and share your results with somebody. So I stood up and I found this random guy and I said, hey, you want to do the exercise together? He goes, yeah, let's do it. So I was excited about my progress. So I decided to go first. I said, hey, I'm Erin Botsford from Dallas, Texas. 3 years ago, I was doing around $300,000 in personal production. I said, this year, I'm on target to do somewhere between 400 and 450. And I'm thinking like, woohoo, look at me. I'm so happy with my progress. And then it was this guy's turn. He said, hey, I'm Paul. I'm an advisor from Virginia. He said, 3 years ago, I was doing around 300,000 in production as well. And I thought to myself, well, look at that. We are just alike. And then he said the words I'll never forget. He goes, this year I'm on target to do 3 million in production. And he said, I don't meet with all of my existing clients anymore. Instead, I've built an entire team around me. All I do is I go out and bring in new clients. And of course, his voice starts wandering off. I'm like, what? You went from 300,000 to 3 million in 3 years? He's like, yep. And I'm thinking, did I miss a coaching session, or did he go to a coaching program on Mars or whatever? I couldn't believe anybody could get those results. So of course, it's time to go back to our seats. The bell rings, and I was just sitting there. It was like that ALS bucket challenge moment. I was stammering. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Paul, could I just buy a few hours of your time? And he said, sure. In fact, why don't you come spend the day with me and my team? And so literally as quickly as I get back to Dallas, I actually made my husband go with me, because I knew that Paul was going to say, like, to get those kind of results, you're going to have to divorce your husband, you're going to sell your firstborn child, but literally I just spent one day with this young man. And a lot of what we talked about was being unforgettable, right? We talked about the things that you and I are going to talk about on January 11th. And so I went back, and a few years later, I did 3 million and then 4 million and 5 million, and my business kept growing. And so, what's interesting about our business is it's not rocket science. And so you mentioned my program. And in fact, my program, I don't call it a coaching program because I would never be a good coach. My program is called a modeling program because, again, it's what we do is not rocket science. And I did figure out a few things. And so what I do is now that I've sold my company, I have what I call my secret sauce. And I just tell advisors, when you get in front of a prospect, say these words. When they respond, say these words, right? mine is a modeling program. It's very prescriptive, and I haven't left anything out. Nothing is left to chance. And what's really cool, Luke, is the advisors who go through my program, they're getting the same results that I did. So that awesome. Is like, it feeds my heart, it feeds my soul. And so that's it. That's my story.
How long were you an advisor for before you sold the business?
31 years.
Yeah, 31 years. Yeah. That's what I love about you. It's like you're such a practitioner. Like you literally just go, well, let me document down exactly what I did. And people can model it. And Josh and I harp on it all the time. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's like so many people are just trying to reinvent the wheel. It's okay to do R&D, research, and duplicate. Like it's okay to do that.
Well, it's insane. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results that you're not happy with, right? Yeah. So why not try something? Find somebody who's done what you want to do and do that same thing. I mean, yep. And I think, something that typically will stand in the way of an advisor is their ego. Well, if they want to do it their way, okay, continue to do it your way, and you'll continue to get whatever results. Hope you're happy with that, right? So
true. Walk us through in your thought process, right? In 2023, everybody's wondering about where things are headed. Society as a whole is scared, right? So what are you advising your clients from a standpoint of trying to be unforgettable in this type of environment and what you've seen work for you over your career?
That's a really good question. Having been in the business 31 years, and I went through a lot of, went through the 2000 .com crisis that lasted 3 years of a bear market, 2008 financial crisis. I mean, I've been through a lot of down markets. And what's interesting about what I teach is that is the perfect time for you to become unforgettable. And so what I teach, in fact, I love a crisis. Never let a crisis go to waste is my mantra. I think I took that from some politician, right? But so I love it because what I do and what I teach has nothing to do with where the economy or the markets are at any given time. And it's actually better for my advisors if there's uncertainty out there. It's actually better for my advisors. They can win business easier than if it's like la-di-da time. So anyway, I love it. This is the time to dominate. I used to call, I dominated Dallas. I dominated Atlanta, and somebody says, so you're the dominatrix? Well, not exactly.
You don't want to compete. You want to dominate. So I tend to agree with you because it speaks to like now you can be the confidence for people that they don't have. You can like your term, like you're an advisor. An advisor is someone that is leading people into things they don't know what to do, and you're advising them in that process, right? You're giving them certainty in an uncertain process. You're giving them experience that you have. But like you dominated Dallas, dominated Atlanta. Like what were some of the things you tactically did to get that certainty into the minds of the prospects that are out there and attract a business to you in that way?
Well, Luke, I have to disagree with you because people do not act when they're certain. They say yes to you when they're uncertain and they need answers. And so what I have is one of my courses is called My Secret Sauce. And the reason I called it My Secret Sauce is until I sold my company, I never shared this with anybody because it was so powerful. So in My Secret Sauce, and I'll just tell you, kind of go walk through the psychology because everything I did was all about psychology. So, a client, a prospect will only seek out a financial advisor when they have some kind of a triggering event in their life, like they're getting ready to retire, they lost a parent, a spouse, their grandchild was born, they changed jobs, they have a 401k to roll over, right? Some kind of a triggering event has to happen in their life for them to go, oh, I may need some advice on this. I need an advisor. Well, in my opinion, like who wants to wait around for that actual triggering event to happen? Not me. So what I did was I created a way to create a triggering event in the prospect's mind that makes them think, oh my gosh, that this is actually, what if this happens? And is some of it negative? Yes, but sometimes life can get negative. So through a series of questions, and I have 22 different lanes to go through that I teach my advisors, again, very prescriptive. In a conversation, I might find out, this client has a lake house. Oh, really? Where is it? And we're in conversation, and I assume you have a boat too. Yeah. So, can I ask you just out of curiosity, how is your lake house titled? well, it's in our name. I'm like, okay, well, let's play out a scenario. So you have a boat. And what if somebody that's skiing behind your boat gets hurt? And now, they get hurt on your property and you're being sued. But the fact that you have your lake house in your own personal name, that means they can not only attach the value of your lake house and your boat, but they can also go back and get anything that's titled in your personal name. Were you aware of that? Of course, usually they're not aware of that. So my thing is, my job is to protect them from the things that really do happen in life. And so people are like, oh my gosh, my real estate agent never mentioned. I said, well, you should have your lake house property titled in some other entity, maybe an LLC or something. I don't know. And well, how come my attorney didn't tell me that? Well, I don't know. But if we work together, we can certainly get that fixed. So I point out things, the market risk. I point out lots of different things and things that happen in everyday life. And what's interesting is my market, I try and teach my advisors to go up market. I want them working in the high net worth marketplace. And because those people have more margin, they have more needs, but they also have more to lose. And a lot of them have been building businesses and they're sitting out there kind of fat, dumb, and happy. They don't realize how vulnerable they might be.
Yeah.
And so, and what's interesting about, advisors that are listening to this or that come to our podcast, what they don't realize is this. It's kind of that adage remember the student is ready, the teacher will appear. What's interesting that I found out now, having trained almost 900 advisors in the last couple of years, when the advisor is ready, the high net worth prospects will appear. So for anybody that wants to move up market, there is a formula for doing it. You just have to be prepared to walk into a meeting with a $30 million business owner. And the nice thing is I have the skill set to prepare you. And what's really cool is now I've trained almost 900 advisors. They're getting the same results as me. Like who would have thought,
It makes so much sense in the sense that like pain point selling or, fear, some people might call it fear-based selling, right? But, revealing the pain points to people is what ultimately is a bigger motivator than even the results. Like I think there's studies out there that prove that people are 10 times or whatever more motivated by pain than they are motivated by actual reward. And so you're basically revealing to them the pain point that they suffer from. Like when we actually sell to financial advisors, one of the things that we reveal to them is how much money you are losing right now on the table because you're not getting the referrals that you should be getting, or how much money is walking out the door from an account transfer that you have. How 2% of kids keep their parents' financial advisor, right? If only 2%, that means you're losing 98%, 97%, depending on who you are, of all those assets to somebody else. And so we reveal, and that gets people to move versus us talking about, hey, if you use our magazine, you're going to, get this much AUM under management. And so it's a similar concept, pain points, selling. I'm curious, like, do you do your marketing that way too? Or is that more pitch based? Like that's more convo based where your marketing is a little different, like your headlines or what you're sending out in emails, what you're doing, from a marketing perspective.
Well, when I was an advisor, I marketed that way, of course, because I built my business. I did a lot of seminars. And so I wanted them to come to the seminar because it's like I'd have three bullet points on, what happens if. And that would draw people to a seminar. So it wasn't like, let's discuss, tax laws or whatever, what happens if, and people always want to know what happens if, So, if you look at the headlines for any credible news organization.
Wait,
right?
Are there credible news organizations out there?
Well, that's true. That is true. But I'm just saying, let's say news organizations that attract attention seem to at least, they get your attention by, like I said, I don't like the word negative because in my life, it's really, my job is to protect people.
Yeah, it's protect
my job as an advisor is to protect people from unforeseen circumstances that can just ruin their day. And Luke, I'll just say one other thing. I came to this from a honest background. Like, when I was, the story, but when I was 16, I was driving my sister's car, my family car, and I hit a guy on a motorcycle. Okay. Yeah. He was killed. I mean, I was charged with involuntary manslaughter. My parents didn't have enough money to pay for my defense. I mean, we had to take out a second mortgage against the house. My mom thought we were going to lose the only asset we had, which was our family home. I mean, now think about it. My parents were broke, but my clients have children and grandchildren driving automobiles in their name. They send them off to college with a car. The car's in my clients' names. And I'm like, did you realize that if your kid, especially if he gets drunk, at a sorority or fraternity party and hits somebody and is being sued, you could lose everything you've worked for. Trust me, I know. I come from a point of understanding the fear that my mom had that she was going to lose her house, right? So I guess the advantage I have in life, because not only was I charged with manslaughter, we were sued for a ridiculous amount of money. And, I understand what the fear, my mother couldn't sleep at night, because imagine thinking your home is going to be taken away from you. Well, look, car accidents happen every single day. So if there was only one thing you talked about with your prospect, tell me how are your assets, how's your car titled, how's your home titled, and do you realize that if this happens, and it doesn't have to be their kid, it can be them. What's
so good, and this is such a good nugget for everybody listening, is like, if you think of fear-based, nobody likes the words, right? Or pain point selling,
sounds
or
like
whatever.
manipulation.
If it sounds bad to you, you have a problem with the value proposition that you're offering.
Right.
It's not about the tactic. We're not using a tactic of pain point or fear-based selling because we're trying to manipulate somebody. No, it's because we believe in the value that we offer and we're bringing to the table as a professional, as a service, whatever your thing is. And so it's a good gut check for people. As if you have a problem revealing the pain points that you're saving people from, though, maybe you have a problem with what you actually are selling. Like, you don't actually believe in the value that you're bringing to the table, because when you hear it, Erin, from you, you go, yeah, it makes so much sense. You authentically are sharing from your own experience, plus your passion of protecting people. And that's why you're so successful at it, because it was authentic and natural. It's not about necessarily influencing, though it does influence people. It's about believing in what you're actually doing.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And what was interesting was, before I started my Elite Advisor Success System, I was unconsciously competent in what I did. I didn't know why. I didn't know why people said yes to me. My claim to fame is I could close a prospect of any size in my first meeting. And I had a mantra: I don't chase prospects. I don't want my advisor students, don't chase prospects. It doesn't look good. But when you get in a room, you got to know what to say. You need to know how to, quote, we call it, disturb them. And what's interesting, and I'm actually learning things along the way, is if they don't say yes to you right then in that very first meeting, is because you haven't disturbed them. And what you haven't done, and this is money, what I'm about to say, is there's no consequence. You've not pointed out consequences to inaction. And so even my students, they're like, oh, well, I did what you said, but they didn't say yes to me. And I'm like, I'm really finding, I'm like, okay, why would that be? Was because you did not point out the consequences of doing nothing. And there are consequences. Right. And so to the extent you can take that deep dive and point out the consequences of inaction, you don't get clients.
Yeah. Incredible.
I mean, even with market-driven stuff, anything. Okay. Yeah. Just sit there with your money at wherever it is in your 401k. So what are the consequences of leaving it positioned exactly as it is?
I love the golden nugget of what if. Like, you as that's such a good action item. You as the advisor, you as the, real estate agent, insurance agent, whatever industry you are listening to this, is like, what if? What are the what ifs that happen that you protect clients from, that you help them overcome? That's so good. Yeah.
Erin, thanks so much for coming on the episode. Before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you.
Sure. They can go to www.erinbotsford.com and sign up for my course.
Awesome. So go check that out. As well as you can sign up for our webinar coming up in a week and a half after this episode drops. And if you miss it when it's live, you can always go into our resource library and find it there as well. But that link will be remindermedia.com/unforgettable webinar. So remindermedia.com/unforgettable webinar. We'll include a link to that as well as Erin's course in our show notes over at staypaidpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, the best way is to share this episode with a friend. You can also head on over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review, and leave a comment along with that. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can find us on social media. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
I'm Luke Acree. Erin, it is always a pleasure. You are truly a rock star. I'm really looking forward to our webinar. Guys, you're not going to want to miss it. Even if you're not an advisor, I would encourage you, you're going to want to register for this webinar because Erin truly is a superstar and you can take away even more golden nuggets than what you got even here on this podcast. Here's my action item for you, though. My action item for you is, do you truly understand the consequences that you save people from? Do you truly understand the what-if scenarios? And that is so worth your time today or tomorrow to go and write that down, to think about that, to make sure you understand the consequences that someone's going to face if they don't work with you, because that will revolutionize your presentation. Now, remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers is top producers take action. Take action on that today.